Okay, good evening, everyone. We're ready to start. Tonight's class, is dedicated my uncle's yahrzeit, Eliezer Yehuda ben Chana Tzivya's yahrzeit is tonight. May this be an Aliyas Neshama for him. My grandfather's yahrzeit is going to be tomorrow night. David Yehuda ben Rabbi Kasil Pinchas. May his neshama have a very great aliyah to the greatest of heights. Yes. So tonight, this week is Parshas Tetzaveh, and tonight is a very, very special evening, in that tonight is the yahrzeit of Moshe Rabbeinu. It's Moshe Rabbeinu's birthday, and it's Moshe Rabbeinu's yahrzeit. And we know the interesting thing is that in Parshas Tetzaveh is the one Torah portion in which Moshe Rabbeinu's name isn't mentioned. After Moshe Rabbeinu was born, Moshe Rabbeinu was born in Shmois, and through the entire Torah, every parsha thereon and onward has Moshe's name until Sefer Devarim. And Sefer Devarim, being that the whole Sefer Devarim is Moshe talking, so you don't have in every parsha his name, because if it's mentioned at the beginning, it doesn't have to have his name because it's just a narration. It's him talking himself. So that's the Sefer Devarim. But every other parsha has Moshe's name. The only parsha that does not have Moshe's name after Moshe was born is this week's parsha, Parshas Tetzaveh. So there's two explanations given of why Moshe's name is omitted in this parsha. One explanation is because this parsha, Parshas Tetzaveh, always comes out in the vicinity of Moshe's passing. And therefore, in order to recognize Moshe's absence, we have a parsha which is usually the week of Moshe's yahrzeit, which represents the idea of Moshe's absence and Moshe not being here. We're missing Moshe's name in the parsha. So it says in Sefer Ma'orei Naim from Reb Nachum of Chernobyl that the lacking of Moshe's name in Parshas Tetzaveh is because it's an indication that that's the time when Moshe passed away. And so we're missing Moshe. Then there is another interpretation, which is brought in the Baal HaTurim and also in his father, the Rosh, and in Da'azikenim and Baalei Tosfos. So it's a much earlier common explanation, in which they explain that because Moshe Rabbeinu said to God, next week's Torah portion, Parshas Kisisa, that if you don't forgive the Jewish people, erase my name, and a curse of a chacham, a curse of a wise man, of a tzaddik, even if it's made conditionally, has an effect, has an impact. So even though Moshe made a very clear condition, only if you don't forgive them, then erase my name from the Torah, and God did forgive them, and since he did forgive them, he didn't have to erase Moshe's name, but since it came out of Moshe's mouth, even though it was a curse with a condition, it has a lingering effect, and so much that it affected Moshe that his name doesn't appear in one portion of the Torah, and that's his Parshas Tetzaveh. That's what the Mefarshim say. So on both these interpretations, we have a question. On the first interpretation, that Moshe Rabbeinu is omitted because Moshe passed away on Zayin Adar, the question is, well, Zayin Adar, Moshe was also born. So just like we have the absence of Moshe and Adar in the 7th of Adar, which is in this week's parsha, Parshas Tetzaveh, we also have an increased presence of Moshe because we have Moshe's birthday. And the birthday highlights a person and highlights their energy and their mazel and so on and so forth. So then you have a birthday, you have a passing. So the passing makes us have an absence of Moshe, but the birthday makes us having a presence of Moshe. So why in Parshas Tetzaveh do we only have a commemoration of Moshe's passing and not the commemoration of Moshe's birthday? You might argue and you might say that Moshe was born, then he lived 120 years, then he passed away. So the passing of Moshe Rabbeinu counters the birthday, because his birth means his presence in a physical body in this world, and his passing means he detaches from that physical body, undoing the birth, in a sense, and going back to heaven. And since the yahrzeit came after the passing, so the yahrzeit prevails, and therefore we commemorate just the absence of Moshe, and not his being, his presence. But you can't say so. The The reason we can't say so, we see actually just the opposite. We see that Moshe Rabbeinu's birthday overpowers his yahrzeit. Moshe Rabbeinu's being born is more powerful than Moshe Rabbeinu departing. Where do we find that? The Midrash tells us that when Haman was casting his lots and deciding what would be a good time to destroy the Jewish people, when the lots came out on the month of Adar, he was very, very happy. Samach simcha gedoyle, he rejoiced very, very much. And he said, well, this is a very good sign because this is the month that their teacher Moshe Rabbeinu died, and therefore their luck is very low and very down, and therefore I'm going to prevail over them. But the Gemara says what Haman did not realize was that they own that just like on the 7th of Adar is Moshe's yahrzeit, the 7th of Adar, again, which is tonight, is also Moshe's birthday. And like Rashi says, Kedehu Yom Haleida Shetechaper Al Yom Hamisa. It is worthy, his birthday, to overpower and to erase the day of his passing. That means that what? That the birthday of Moshe, even in the days of Haman, who lived already 1,000 years after Moshe's passing, yet the birthday of Moshe overpowered the yahrzeit of Moshe, Moshe's day of his passing, to bring good news for the Jewish people, and that's why the whole miracle of Purim happened. So we see that we still have the vibrations of Moshe's birthday, and if that's the case, so why in Parshas Tetzaveh do we seem only to have an absence of Moshe and not a commemoration of Moshe's birth? If the birth is more important than the passing and stronger than the passing. Now on the second explanation, which we said that Moshe Rabbeinu made a Tanai, Moshe Rabbeinu, so to speak, cursed himself with a condition, but still he cursed himself. And because of that, Moshe Rabbeinu is not mentioned in this week's Parsha. It had to take effect somewhere. So it took effect in Parshas Tetzaveh. The question is, why this Parsha? This Parsha is before the sin of the golden calf. Moshe Rabbeinu cursed himself, so to speak, when he asked God to erase his name on behalf of the Jewish people. That was after the Jewish people sinned with the golden calf, which is something that takes place in next week's Torah portion, Parshas Kisisa. So why would we obliterate Moshe's name in the Torah portion when we don't even know that story yet? Moshe haven't even said it yet. It's still before the whole story, especially according to the chronological time when Parshas Tetzaveh was said. There's an argument when these Torah portions happened. Teruma Tetzaveh, when did it really happen? According to Rashi, last week's Torah portion and this week's Torah portion really happened after the story of the golden calf. So even though it's recorded in the Torah first, but it really happened later. That's according to Rashi. But according to the other commentators, the Zohar and Ramban and so who brings it, the Teruma Tetzaveh happened, God's commandment to the Jewish people to build a tabernacle and a mishkan happened before the golden calf, before the Chet HaEgel. And if it happened before the golden calf, that means, so even both, in the Chumash it stated first, and in the actual historical order when it took place, God commanded them to build a Mishkan even before they ever sinned with the golden calf. Again, according to one opinion, according to the opinion of the Zohar. So why in the world would you take Moshe Rabbeinu's name out of at a time period when the whole thing didn't happen yet? He never uttered that curse. He never asked God to erase his name. Why not wait for later? Definitely doesn't happen in this season. We're now in the month of Adar. When did Moshe ask God to erase his name? After the sin of the golden calf, which happened in the summertime. Because Moshe Rabbeinu, that were at Shavuos, when God gave the Torah on Shavuos, right, which is usually in early June, late May or June, right? That's when we get the Torah. Then Moshe goes up to the mountain for 40 days to receive the tablets, the luchos. Then he comes back with the tablets, and that's when the Jewish people made the golden calf, and he broke the tablets. Then he goes back up to God for another 40 days. So we're talking about July, and that's when he says to God, right, in the middle of the summer, Tammuz, erase, if you don't forgive them, erase me. So this belongs. So if anything, we should make a a sign for Moshe's curse in the summer, not now in the winter time in March and whatever. This is the time. Well, it doesn't belong here. So on all levels, it doesn't belong here. Why are we doing it in Parshas Tetzaveh? We also need to understand what is the connection between the two reasons. Reason number one was that it's Moshe Rabbeinu's yard site, and that's why Moshe's name is not mentioned in Parshas Tetzaveh. Reason number two, it's because of a curse. Is there a relationship between the two? Whenever there's two reasons, there's always a connection between the two. So in order to understand this, we need a better understanding, a whole better understanding in the idea of what the Gemara says, that Moshe Rabbeinu's birth, the birthday of Moshe Rabbeinu, is what actually saved the Jewish people on Purim, which I mentioned earlier. The Gemara says that Haman got all excited when he saw that the lots fell out the way on the month of Adar, because he said this is a good time because Moshe died. Then it turns out that he failed to realize that it was really Moshe's birthday. So what happened? Because it was Moshe's birthday, what happens? We had, according to this, it was the birth of Moshe, which is actually what causes the whole v'nahapachu, the whole, because like the Gemara says, Haman said, it's a good mazel in the month of Adar. The month of Adar is the month of fish. Fish swallow, a large fish swallows another fish, a smaller fish. So here too, he said, I'm going to be able to swallow the Jewish people alive. That's what he was excited. He felt that the mazel of the month of Adar is going to work in his favor. So God laughs and God says, hey man, you're missing it. He says, fish, sometimes they swallow other fish, but sometimes they're the ones who end up as lunch. So he says, and this is, in this case, you're going to be swallowed by them, you're not going to swallow them. That's what happened. So you see, the whole month of Adar is a v'nahapachu. There's a conversion. There is a flip over. So, and again, the Gemara attributes it to Moshe Rabbeinu's birth. But the question over here is, we said earlier, there are two things that happen in the month of Adar. The Gemara says, Haman was happy because Moshe Rabbeinu passed away in the month of Adar. Then what happened? He didn't know that Moshe was born in the month of Adar. And the Gemara says, Kedaihu Yom Haleda Lechaper al Yom Hamisa, which means that the day of the birth has enough power in order to be a kapara, to be a cleansing, a purification, or to wipe away the negative effects of Moshe's passing. So according to this, comes out as follows. We have a pro and a con over here. We have a positive and a negative. We have the fact that Moshe Rabbeinu passed away. That creates negativity in the month of Adar. We have Moshe Rabbeinu being born in the month of Adar. So the birth of Moshe Rabbeinu in the month of Adar is a positive energy. So what does the positive energy do? The positive energy of Moshe Rabbeinu being born balances, because it overcomes and it wipes away the negativity of Moshe's passing. So if you have 5 minus points, and then you have 5 plus points, so the 5 plus points erase the deficit. So you're back to 0. You don't have any merit. It's just a regular month. You had negativity in the month. You have positivity that counters the negativity. So what are you back? You're back to no positive and no negative. You're back to the 0. So it comes out according to that, the month of Adar doesn't have really any special mazel, doesn't have any special favor or special good omen for the Jewish people. At best, what Moshe Rabbeinu's, and you can't, at best, you have to just dismiss Moshe Rabbeinu from the equation, because we wanted to see it as something negative, but the negativity got erased by the positivity of Moshe being born. So it's just, it's again equal, back to 0. And therefore, it's just a regular month. But yet, the sages tell us that the month of Adar is Bari Mazle. That's a time when when the mazel of the Jewish people is very, very strong. It's a very healthy time for Israel, for the Jewish people. And we know Mishanechnes Adar, so much so that when the month of Adar comes in, Marbim B'Simcha, we have to increase the joy. And we have to intensify the joy. And how long? For the entire month. Every day of the month of Adar, we have to increase more joy and more joy and more joy than the day before. And this is all related to the story of Purim, which the story of Purim is rooted in one thing, in the Haman was defeated. When Haman really thought he was going to win, he was defeated. Why? Because with an ahapachu, it was turned over. And why was it turned over? Because as the Gemara says, because Moshe's birthday. So this is really, we need to understand, how does it work? How does it work? How do we get such positive energy in the month of Adar? How do we get it to be such a power? We don't have any other month in the entire year in which we say there are good days sparkled through the entire year. But yet we don't have any one of these good days throughout the year that cast a happiness, a joy, a joyous energy on the entire month. To say that the entire month is now converted and the whole month becomes a happy month. It doesn't exist. It's only in the month of Adar. Because Purim is so powerful. Because what is really so powerful? The miracle of Purim. V'nahapachu. V'nahapachu, that the Jewish people ruled over their enemies. Incredible. For what purpose? It's all rooted in our leader Moshe. Because Moshe was born. But Moshe also died. So how does it work? Why is it that the positivity of Moshe's birth is so powerful? And as we said earlier, from the Gemara, it seems to imply that at best, it just cancels each other's out. That's my question. Take it a step further. It's not my question, it's the Rebbe's question. Take it a step further. If you look in the Midrash says, interesting, it's a Midrash in Midrash Rabbah and Esther. So the Midrash says that when Haman was casting his lots, he was looking at every month. And he looked at the first month, the month of Nisan. And he said, the month of Nisan's got Pesach. It's got the merit of Pesach. It's got Schus Pesach, the merit of Pesach. And then he looked in the month of Iyar, and he said, this month, it's got the merit of Pesach Sheni. There's the second Pesach that we do in Iyar. Then it came to Sivan. He said, this is the month that's got the merit of Shavuot, right, of the holiday of the giving of the Torah. So he went through every month, and in every month he found a positive zchut, a positive merit for the Jewish people. Then, when he came to the month of Adar, he saw it's meritless. It doesn't have any merit at all. So he was happy. And then he goes back. Not only does he evaluate the occurrences that happened, historical events that happened on those months, he's looking to find the place where he can get in. He's trying to find a little loophole. He's trying to find a little breach in God's love to the Jewish people. Because they understand the nations who have been starting up with the Jewish people, especially those ambitious ones who thought they can wipe the Jewish people off the map, knew it's not an easy thing. Knew they need to bypass the divine protection. So they needed to find something that they can get in. So Haman went and tested everything. As he went through the months, he saw the merit of the holidays, so on and so forth, each month. In addition to that, he was looking at the mazel. Every month we know has its constellation. So the month of Nisan has the mazel of Tleh, of the sheep. And he found some kind of a merit to the Jewish people with the sheep. I didn't look up the Medrash today, but he found something about the sheep. And then the next mazel was the mazel of the ox, which is the mazel in the month of Iyar. And he found the merit for the Jewish people with the ox. And so he went through. Finally, when he came to Adar, he said, first of all, there's no holiday here. There's no mazel, there's no special deed that the Jewish people do in the month of Adar. Obviously, God was saving it for Haman himself, right? So he didn't realize that he was the one who needed to create this one. And the other thing was, he said fish, nothing about fish. So the fish didn't, and then after he made, this is what the Medrash says, and after he finished makes all these calculations about all the 12 months and the merits of the month, so he finds a very boring month that is literally without anything. Then the Midrash says he realized also that Moshe Rabbeinu died in that month. So he said, now you see that their luck is down. Not only is this just a plain, simple month without any positivity to it for the Jewish people, there is also a great black hole in this month for them because their leader, their redeemer died in this month. And the Medrash says he didn't realize that he was also born in the month. Okay, so you see clearly from the Midrash that good, if Moshe is also born, it takes away that extra black, dark stain that there is in the month of Adar, but Adar still remains a meritless month. So how is it that suddenly we say that the Jewish people have such mazel, our strongest mazel is in the month of Adar? Bari mazle mishanechnas Adar marbim besimcha. What gives Adar that power? You say the story of Purim, but what caused the story of Purim? There had to be some kind of a zechus, some kind of a merit, some kind of a mazel that was behind it. And it seems like from the Talmud, from the Gemara, that it's the mazel of Moshe being born. But Moshe also dies. So how does that work? In the idea of Chodesh Adar being the super great month for Israel, for the Jewish people. And the idea is as follows. It really, really, really is all about Moshe Rabbeinu being born. The Gemara tells us that the day of a person's birthday is a day. It's a Gemara. It's a Talmud in Yerushalmi, in the Jerusalem Talmud. The Jerusalem Talmud says that when a day of a person's birthday, their mazel is gover. That means that person's mazel is very strong. Every person has a mazel. You have a certain, I don't want to say a star, but some kind of a spiritual energy that's the energy of your life. The energy of, obviously God is the energy of our life, but there's something there that means well. It's a good sign for this particular individual, for this particular person. On the day of your birthday, that energy or that phenomenon, that power, whatever it is brighter than every other day. And that's why a birthday is an auspicious day. It's a day that you can accomplish things, you can do things, you can take, strides in your life that you can't do another day. It's a very strong day for a person. That's why we know that it became a Chassidic custom, Be'ikr pushed by the Lubavitcher Rebbe, that people should celebrate their birthdays. It didn't used to be always something that people paid attention to. People paid attention. In Judaism, we are into krechting and sighing, so we like to be busy with yard sites. But a happy thing that you're born, and this is your birthday. So the Rebbe instituted very strongly that people should take the day, and first of all for reflection, and to use it as a small mini Rosh Hashanah, day of Tshuva, and so on and so forth. But also to throw a party and sit with your friends. Call it a fabrengen, and give blessings, receive blessings, and strengthen yourself and who you are and what you are and what difference you make in the world, and so on and so forth. Take upon yourself new endeavors, new good things for the up and coming year. It's like a little Rosh Hashanah for a person, and that's what the Rebbe taught and asked very much, that we should spread this, that everybody should celebrate their birthday. It's a very, very, very important day. It's a strong day. It's a chiddush. But it's based on this Yerushalmi, where the Yerushalmi says that a person's mazel is gover on the day of their birthday. So what happens on Moshe Rabbeinu's birthday? It means that Moshe Rabbeinu's mazel is very strong. Moshe's mazel. Okay. Now Moshe is a big tzaddik, so Moshe's mazel is being strong is a very important day. But it's much deeper than that. Rashi tells us in Parshas Chukas, Hanasi hu hakoil, that the Nasi, the leader of the Jewish people, he is everybody. The leader of the Jewish people is the nucleus of the Jewish people. So he is the embodiment, the spiritual embodiment of his neshama that includes all of Israel, all of the Jewish people. That's every leader. In every generation there is a leader. That leader encompasses the entire generation, is equivalent to the generation, and he encompasses the entire generation. Now, our first leader, who led us as a people, we had forefathers, but we're talking about a leader who led the Jewish people as a people, is Moshe Rabbeinu. So therefore, as our first leader, obviously he's a very, very powerful leader. And he for sure embodied all the 600,000 souls. of Israel. But even more than that, we know that that generation, the 600,000 souls, they incorporate all the souls of the Jewish people throughout all of history. Which means that their leader, Moshe Rabbeinu, is the leader of the Jewish people for all of history. That's why the Zohar actually tells us that there's only really one leader to the Jewish people, and he is Moshe Rabbeinu. The Zohar says, however, Ispashtusa de Moshe b'chol dara v'dara. Moshe Rabbeinu's neshama gets spread out in every generation. That means in every generation there is a manifestation of Moshe Rabbeinu in the leaders of the generation, or primarily in the one primary leader of the Jewish people. He embodies Moshe's neshama. He has a spark of Moshe. And if I'm not mistaken, I once spoke about this, the Zohar says, I looked it up in Zohar, this time I couldn't find it, but last time I had far more sources, so I hope I'm going to go back and find exactly where the source is. But if I remember correctly, truth is I do remember. It says it. I just don't remember the exact words, where it says that the Moshe Rabbeinu is in every generation, and primarily his main effect is in the last generation, right by the time of the coming of Mashiach. It's like Moshe Rabbeinu himself is back again, manifesting within the leader. It makes sense because the last leader is also the redeemer of the Jewish people. And we know what the sages tell us, that Moshe Rabbeinu is the first redeemer and Moshe Rabbeinu is the final redeemer. Goel Rishon hu Goel Achron. He is the final redeemer. Now, not as the body of Moshe. He can't come back as the body of Moshe because Moshe Rabbeinu is a Levi, and Mashiach has to be from the tribe of Yehuda. He has to be a descendant from King David. So it can't be the physical Moshe. It means Moshe Rabbeinu's neshama somehow becomes connected and part of and included in the neshama of Mashiach, and that is the leader of the Jewish people. It's as if Moshe Rabbeinu literally is leading the Jewish people out of this exile. He's the first redeemer and he's the last redeemer. If that's the case, that means that, and we say the leader encompasses and is equal, and he is the soul of all his people. He is the neshama of everybody. His soul encompasses all their souls. That means the day of his mazel, when his mazel is shining, that means the mazel of the Jewish people are in a very strong day. If you want to know the day in which our mazel is the strongest, which day? It's tonight. The night of Zion Adar, the 7th of Adar, it's Moshe Rabbeinu's birthday. Moshe Rabbeinu's birthday means that he is shining with all his power and all his might, being that he is our energy, he's our soul, he's our nucleus of our being. We're all plugged into his soul, and through his oxygen and his life force and his pulse, that's our pulse and that's our life. As Moshe Rabbeinu is intrinsically and inherently bound up with the Jewish people as totally being one. Hanasi hu hakoil, the Nasi is everybody. Nasi hador kechol ador, that's another words of Rashi. The leader of the generation is like the entire generation. If that's the case, his birthday, the day of his mazel shines, is the mazel day when the Jewish people's mazel is in the strongest. Now the question is, and that's the reason why this day of Zion Adar is so powerful. The mazel of the Jewish people. Now, even though we say, and everybody has heard the phrase, generally there is a phrase that says that all the nations and all the people in the world are under a mazel, and the Jewish people are not under a mazel. We're directly under God. As the sages say, Ein mazel li Yisroel. There is no mazel to Israel. So how does that fit with what we're saying now? That when Moshe Rabbeinu was born, that's his mazel is strong, and that's the mazel of the Jewish people in full strength. So here's the secret. What does it mean when we say the mazel of somebody is strong? What does that mean? So we can say like this: every person, every country, let's take it for about a country, every nation has a certain a certain identity, and therefore every nation has certain talents, and every nation contributes to humanity something. They produced something. They created something. They brought something in terms of cultural things, in terms of innovation, in terms of people from all over the world have always innovated and brought different things. So the Chinese brought what they brought. The people in India contributed what they contributed. The French brought what the French brought, and each one, everybody contributed. Everybody had something. Now, what's the mazel? The mazel means the power of your identity, the power of what you represent, your spiritual power. And that's where your strength comes from. That's where the strength of the nation comes from, or the strength of every individual. It's you at your highest point, you at your source. So your source, if you can connect to your mazel, obviously that mazel feeds you, it strengthens you. And as we said before, the day of your birthday, that mazel is shining. So there is that energy, that particular energy that you represent is then highlighted and stronger and more potent. It's turned on to its highest, on the highest volume. That's the idea on a birthday. It's shining. Today, this particular star is shining up the sky more than all the other stars. It's brighter. So what does it mean? It means the spiritual energy of this particular nation or this particular people or this plant. Everything in this world has a mazel. The Gemara says even a blade of grass has a mazel in heaven that tells it to grow. Everything has a mazel. So the mazel is the origins of whatever it is that there is in its purest form. So now, when we trace every single creature and being up to its original beginning, every single creature begins and has a certain identity. It begins by being something. Okay? It is something. So, for instance, I don't know, let's say fire. Fire is hot and bright and very intense. So imagine if we can go up and reach the root and the source of fire. The root and the source of fire is fire in all of its intensity and its original and its most potent inner state of existence. That's the fire. Or we see the fire, the root of fire is gevura, but it's something. So is the root of every creature and every being and it starts off as an identity, as somethingness. It's the something in its most original form where God initially created it. That's true about everything in this world, besides one thing, and that is the Jewish people. If we trace our origins back to our most original beginning of beginnings, the quintessential start of the Jewish people, we don't exist as an existence, as a something, as an entity. To say that there is, God, and God created nations, and He created a Jewish people. And maybe they're unique, they're special, but there is a people, there is a something, there is a Jewish entity. That's not what it is. The origins of being Jewish, the origins of a Jewish neshama is not the beingness. The origins of the origins of a Jewish neshama, if you trace the Jewish neshama back to its beginning, it's nothing other than Hashem. The Jewish neshama is not defined with any definitions. A Jew's being is really the undefined beingness of the absoluteness of God. That's our existence. Our existence, because who are we? We're not here in the world to be a certain creative people that create. Let's say we can look at the Jewish people and say, "Wow, take a look at all the creativity the Jewish people have created in terms of arts and in medicine and in science and in philosophy and in every arena." It's unbelievable how many Nobel prizes the Jews have won. Even though we're percentage. And so we can say, okay, so the Jewish people were here to be the mind people, the people of great brain, of great creativity in the world. They can do. No. We say we're intellectuals. We're the. That's not it. That's not. That's. That's a consequence of something infinitely deeper. The Jewish people are here to be the conveyors of God in the world. The Jewish peoples are the channelers or the conduits. Jewish people are here as the Talmud says, as the sages say, or the verse says, it's a pasuk. Atem edai, you are my witnesses. You are here to be a testimony to my existence, to God's undefinable, unspecified existence. That means that our origins and our beginning is not as a something. We exist in the nothingness of God. When we say nothing by God, we mean the undefinable existence of God, because it's infinite and simple with utter simplicity, which means it transcends any definition. It can't be said that it's blue, it's not white, it's not yellow, it's not green, it's not orange, because it transcends all colors equally, because Hashem has no definition. It's not smart or warm or cold or tall or short or hard or soft or intelligent or compassionate, or because these are all definitions. These are definitions relating to Hashem's emotions and Hashem's attributes, but it's not defining God. God is beyond it all, and the Jewish people are rooted in the quintessence of God, and therefore on us there is no definable existence to say that that's the beginning of our existence. So therefore, what did the sages say about the mazel of the Jewish people? What's our mazel? What's our oomph? What's our strength? The oomph of the Jewish people is ein mazel li Yisroel. The Jewish people's mazel is ayin. Ein means ayin, nothingness. The nothingness of God, the undefined existence. But precisely because he's nothing, he's absolutely and infinite and beyond. Everything that's something has a measure, it has a limit, it has something that can beat it, something that can contradict it, something that can destroy it, because anything that's something is something, and then there is something else. And there is conflict and contradictions and so forth, because it's limited, it's finite, it's specified to something. And that's true about every creature, every being in the spiritual, the physical world. Everything has a definition. It's all creation. So the mazel, mazel is very good. Mazel is you at your strongest point, at your original, when you're born up there in your source. That's your mazel. But that too is limited. What's the mazel of the Jewish people? The mazel of the Jewish people is our origins, where we are absolutely not defined. Down here, what are the Jewish people? Yes, scientists and scholars and teachers and entrepreneurs and businessmen and people that are everything, and cooks and people of all kinds of artistic talents and musicians and everything. And schleppers too. We have everything. Every single type of thing that you need to be colorful and beautiful and this. Everything there is in the Jewish people. But these are just expressions, outer expressions. Once we come into a world and we take on a form as a human race, as a human nation amongst the human race, that's not our deeper secret. That's not our inner essence. Our inner essence is the conveyor of God in this world, of God's super self that is not defined by any definitions. Now, we down here, once we're in bodies, once we're people, we also have an identity as anyone else. And therefore, we exist in a consciousness of existence. And when you have a consciousness of existence, your primary occupation, or your primary, what I was going to say, the primary attention that I'm not looking for that now. Whatever the word is. You're looking out to preserve your existence, to watch your existence, to enhance your existence, because you're whoever you are. You want to take care of that. Whatever I am, I want to make sure I'm good. I'm okay. I'm fine, and I'm developing, and I'm growing, and I'm having more, and so on and so forth. Like every human being. That's true. But that's not really at the core essence of the Jew. At the core essence of the Jew, it's a whole different story. Because the core essence of the Jew is a non-entity. The core essence of the Jew wants to reveal God, not himself. In the core essence of the Jew, we sense God being truer than we are, or rather, truer. Our existence is his existence. So therefore, what we want most and what we're the most devoted to and the most dedicated to is him, not us. And our biggest desire is to dissolve from our shape and form of existing and just allow his existence to shine through us. That's the deepest inner core of a Jew. Our ability to dissolve and become, to cast away our own being and our own needs and wants and whatever it is for a much higher existence, and that is the existence of God. And that's why we know that at the core of every single Jew, at the root of every Jew, is the power to give their life up, al Kiddush Hashem. And that's what makes us Jewish. What makes us Jewish is not our Jewish brains, not our intelligence. What makes us Jewish is our Jewish soul. And what's unique about the Jewish soul? The fact that if you push it all the way up to its limits, it dissolves into being God, not self, into non-beingness. And therefore, regarding its physical life, it's willing to give up its physical life. And that's why Jews throughout history have given their lives up, al Kiddush Hashem, have always given their lives up in self-sacrifice throughout history. And it wasn't just great, devoted, religious scholars. It was just like this, everyone. Women, children, all across, scholars, laymen, regular, simple people, gave their lives up. Why? Because when one came to them and said, you have a choice of denying God and being alive, or you will be killed if you do not deny God. If you want to hold on to your belief, your religious belief, we're going to kill you. The Jew said, you're threatening my identity more by letting me live in denial of God. That's a greater threat. That's a greater obliteration of my identity. I can't live. If you're taking away my physical life, you're obliterating me physically. But if you're making me deny God, you're obliterating my entire existence. Because who are we in our true existence? We're not ourselves. We are Him. We are God coming down in a physical, enclosed in our physical bodies, here to express Him. But we're here to express the unity and the oneness of God. That's who we are at our core. Who brought that out, and when did that come out? In the month of Adar. In the month of Adar, during the story of Purim, the Jewish people all stood for an entire year, because Haman, we spoke about this many times. Haman's decree was only on the Jewish people. And Haman was going to create a Holocaust. He was going to kill men, women, and children. It was going to be a slaughter. It was going to be the worst thing. It was going to happen all on one day. We can't even fathom that. I don't even know how they had the capacity to do it. But they were going to kill all the Jewish people in one day. And the Jewish people sat and waited and counted down day after day after day after day. Every day knowing the day is coming closer and closer and closer. When they, their children, their grandparents, their parents, their brothers, their sisters, their neighbors, their friends, everybody's going to die. God forbid. And they could have saved themselves. They could have saved themselves by going to the office of I don't know the government office, and renouncing their Judaism and saying we're assuming now a Persian identity. We're not Jewish. Had they done that, they would have been off the hook, because the decree was only on the Jewish people. And not one Jew did that. Not one Jew from the hundreds of thousands of Jews, not one Jew even thought of doing that. And it wasn't that they had a chance. It was a 3-day decision or a 5-minute decision. They lived at that like that an entire year. An entire year, because from when Haman made the decree until the day that they were supposed to be slaughtered was an entire year. So even though Haman was killed a little bit after that, but the decree was still looming, because Achashverosh couldn't revoke the decree. So there were a lot of anti-Semites that were armed to the teeth. And they were willing to, and they were going to do it. So these Jews, and they would have been legitimate because they had the king's approval that they're allowed to do so. It was a very dangerous situation. And yet, an entire people. Why? Because by the story, an entire people stood and were willing to be obliterated, not to deny their allegiance to God. How did that happen? What was that? It's because it's the month of Adar. And the month of Adar, Moshe Rabbeinu was born. And Moshe Rabbeinu is the leader of the Jewish people. And when a person is born, his mazel is very strong. What's the mazel of the Jewish people? The mazel of the Jewish people is our source, where we begin. And where do we begin? We begin in non-beingness. We begin in being canceled in God. So that element, sometimes we feel the conflict. Sometimes I feel that I exist very much, and I'm very not happy with God telling me I have to wait another 10 minutes before I can eat the cheesecake that I want to eat because I'm not yet 6 hours. Sometimes I feel, God, get out of my life right now. I want cheesecake. I'm going to eat it, and I'm just ignoring you. Sadly, we have those conflicts. Sometimes we don't want to listen to Hashem. That means we do feel our existence more because we're not in touch with our mazel. We're not in touch with our pneumias. We're not in touch with our deepest identity. But in the month of Adar, because it's Moshe Rabbeinu's birthday, and because it's his mazel is very strong, and his mazel is our mazel, and what's our mazel? Our mazel is nullification to God. And think about it, what's Moshe? Moshe Rabbeinu's being is bittul. Moshe Rabbeinu's entire existence, va'anachnu, what does Moshe say about himself? He's the one person who exists in non-existence. He's the one person who keeps on saying, va'anachnu ma, and I am what? I have no existence. I am substanceless. So Moshe is the root of the power of bittul. Bittul meaning nullification. Bittul meaning, when I say nullification, doesn't mean nullification. It means true existence. True existence where you're not limited to be a finite little shmendrik of you, of who, whatever we are. It's when you are one with who you truly are. And that is God. And here's the amazing thing. When that is revealed, we are as absolute as God is, and therefore we are indestructible. We are eternal. We're forever, and it's unthinkable and impossible for anybody to mess with us. That's when we are super, super strong. Why? That's when we are crazy, super strong. Thank you. Why are we so strong? Hear this. You can fight and punch and you can try to destroy a something. Something could be destroyed. Nothingness can't be destroyed. The people that are nothing, you can't destroy nothingness. And when I say nothingness, I don't mean absence of existence. I mean true existence. Being nothing because we're beyond anything definable. Such a people that represent that which is absolute and beyond any definition, you can't destroy. So it's exactly at the moment when we dissolve from our existence, when we're willing to give everything up for God, to the point, even our very physical lives and our existence, our money, our everything, just total and say, God, you are. At that moment, we are Him, and we are Him. We're indestructible. And that's why Adar, we're so powerful, we're so strong. Because in Adar, we are the most Jewish. That's why in the Megillah, we're referred to the whole time in Adar as Yehudi, Ish Yehudi. Mordechai is Ish Yehudi, even though he wasn't even from Judah. He was from Binyamin. And all the Jewish people are referred to. They're not called Israel. They're called Yehudim, Jew. And how are we called for the rest of history after the story of Purim? We're not referred to as Israelites. We are referred to as Jewish people. Jew is Yehuda. The word Yehuda means from the word submission to God, surrender. That's who we are, and that's why the whole attempt of anti-Semitism can't work, because they hate Jew. They hate us because of what we are, and precisely because of that, they will never be able to beat us. Because you can't destroy what isn't. You can destroy an existence. They're relating to us like they would be relating to themselves. I'm a somebody. Okay, so I'm going to get a big somebody to crush the small somebody. But you can't destroy something that doesn't exist as an existence. We don't exist as an existence. We defy everything. And that's why it's interesting. The Jewish people are called Adirim, the strong ones, the mighty ones. Adirim, the strong ones. The Midrash says, in the Gemara, Masechtes Menachos, The Gemara says, Adirim elu Yisroel, the mighty ones, those are the Jewish people. Because we're connected to what we call Hashem, is Adir Bamarom Hashem, the mighty one. Adir Bamarom. God is the mighty one. The mighty one, the one who can't be destroyed. And that's what the month of Adar stands for. Adar represents the Adir, the powerful might of the Jewish people. Our might is because of Moshe Rabbeinu. Because of that point of bittul that Moshe Rabbeinu, the inner, deepest point that Moshe Rabbeinu awakens within us, which is our mazel, which is our point of the complete nullification, and rather, I don't like to just use the word nullification. It's deeper than nullification. It's nullification that leads to our assimilation and identification with God's existence. He is our existence. And because that's our mazel, that's why the whole story of Purim happened. V'nahapachu. Now, the really interesting thing is that it's interesting. That's why we find the month of Adar to be the one month. This year it's not. We don't do it. But in the months of the year, when we make a leap year, we do it on the month of Adar. So why do we take Dafka the month of Adar and make that the month of the leap year? And the answer is the Jewish people are compared to the moon. The nations of the world are compared to the sun. The Jewish people are compared to the moon. The renewal of the moon every month represents the idea that Israel will renew itself, constantly renews itself. Even when it looks like they've disappeared, even though it looks like they've been defeated, they always come back again, right? When we're making an extra month, and we have to take 1 month, which month do we take? We take the month in which the Jewish people are the strongest. The month in which we are the strongest is the month of Adar. The reason why we're so strong in the month of Adar is very different. So let's go back, and this is very important. Let's go back to the Midrash we quoted earlier. You see, Haman was going through every month, and Haman was saying, Nisan, it's got zuchus, it's got merit. This one, it's got this mitzvah, it has this mazel, it's a powerful month for Israel. And so he goes through each one, and he says each one has good omens for the Jewish people. They have certain powers, sometimes it's connected to certain tzaddikim. Sometimes it's connected to certain tzaddikim, to certain righteous people. It has this tzaddik's birthday, or this great person, and so on and so forth. When he comes to Adar, he says this month doesn't have any merit. There's no merit. And then he looks at the fish, and he says the fish, sometimes the fish get swallowed, right? The fish swallow. So therefore, I'm going to be able to swallow the Jewish people. And God laughs, and God says, you know what? Fish, they swallow, but sometimes fish get swallowed as well. So the question over here is, okay, sometimes like this, sometimes like that. How do you know it's going to go? It seems like Hashem is going along with Haman. He's not like, he's respecting what Haman is saying. He's just saying you're not realizing something. That fish also gets swallowed. Okay, fine. But how do we know that Haman is going to be swallowed? Maybe he's going to swallow. How are we sure that it's going to go the Jewish way? It's going to go in our favor. It seems like it's up. It's just like Haman does. He casts lotteries. It's up to something that's beyond reason, beyond rational. So how do you know it's going to be that way? But the answer to all of this is like this. Every month has its particular, in terms of the Jewish people, we have in each month we have a certain mitzvah, which means we have a certain empowerment from that mitzvah, or because it's this tzaddik, this particular person who gives us a certain empowerment, and so on and so forth. The month of Adar, we don't have any particular empowerments from this or from that. What we have in the month of Adar is we have Moshe Rabbeinu's birthday. And if we have Moshe Rabbeinu's birthday, it means the essential power of Israel, the Jewish people at their core, is strong. So Adar doesn't have to have any powers. It doesn't have to have any particular specifics. It's the Jewish people as a whole. Being that it's Moshe's birthday, it's the Jewish people as a whole that's powerful. And therefore, that's what's going to make sure that Haman is going to be swallowed. Not he's the swallower, because Israel is not swallowable in the month of Adar. Because the mazel of the Jewish people is so super, dafk in the month of Adar, and what's the mazel? As we said earlier, it's not a specific thing. It's the non-beingness of the Jewish people. It's that our oneness with the being who can't be defined with any definitions. That's the state of our mazel of Chodesh Adar. But that's the reason why also, as we said before, when we make a leap year, we take the month of Adar, because the month of Adar represents the essential quality of Israel. And three things happen when we have a leap year. There's three ideas behind it. Again, this year we don't have a leap year. But the three ideas that happen in a leap year, not in the Hebrew calendar, there's no leap year. So there's no two Adars. But what is the idea of a leap year? The idea of a leap year is first of all to make the moon cycle, the lunar cycle, catch up with the solar cycle. Because what happens is the solar cycle, the lunar cycle has a shorter rotation. So there is less days in a lunar year than there is in a solar year. 11 and a half days less in a lunar year than in a solar year. So after a couple of years, the lunar year is going to become too disconnected. So after every 3 years, something like that, around every 3 years, we add a leap year. So we add an extra month, 30 days, so we can even out the lunar to the sun. So what does that mean? The evening out of the moon to the sun represents evening out the playing field. We have the Jewish people as a one sheep among 70 wolves. In a sense, a little bit of a weaker existence in this world. We're a people that have been wandering amongst the nations. We've been unstable. We've been lacking, and everybody's been out to get us. The sun is a big, powerful power in the sky. The moon, she's there, she's not there. Here she's in, she's out. A flimsy little existence. In the month of Adar, when the Jewish people are very strong, that's the month that we use to even out the strength of Israel to the strength of the nations. Or even more than that, on a much higher level. When Mashiach is going to come, the moon is going to be restored again to its brightness like the sun. The light of the moon is going to be like the light of the sun. So the evening out of the sun and the moon means to strengthen, to bring to a point where the moon will stop its fluctuations up and down. The moon will be the powerful being in the sky, just like the sun, but even stronger than that. Because when we have a leap year, the sun year is 365 days. A regular lunar year is 354 days. When you make it into a leap year, you add another 30 days, it becomes 84 days, which means that the moon becomes even more powerful in terms of days. I'm talking about in concept, we're not dealing with, the moon's year, being that it's now 384 days, represents the idea that it's even stronger than the sun. So all of this is related to the power of month of Adar. With the month of Adar, is our mazel is strong. Our mazel is strong because our leader is strong. And our leader brings out our essence. And our essence is our oneness with God, where we're rooted in a place of ayin, of nothingness. And in that nothingness is unbreakable. And now we'll understand an interesting thing. Moshe Rabbeinu's birthday is, we can understand why his birthday is in the month of Adar now. But the month of Adar is special because it's Moshe's birthday. But why is Moshe's birthday on the 7th of Adar? Why is it the 7th of Adar? And here's a very important idea. And that is that the mazel of the Jewish people, this point of contact where the soul dissolves in God's light, is not something that is present down here in our body. Because we're not conscious of it. In different places it explains that the mazel of the neshama is the part of your soul that's not vested in the body. The part of your soul that's up there. Only a ray of the soul, only a little bit of the neshama comes down into the body. The mazel remains transcendental, remains up there. And it says that the mazel communicates with the part of our soul that's in our body, and that's why it's called mazel. Mazel comes from the word linzol. Linzol means to drip drop. Dripping drop. That it drops. There's a constant drip from our soul down to our body. The fact that the Baal Shem Tov says that sometimes we experience like suddenly an awakening, we want to become better, we want to do tshuva, we want to daven better, we want to connect better, and we didn't really work on it. It's because we're experiencing these drips. It's a constant drip from the part of the soul that's not in a body, and therefore experiences the absoluteness of God to the part of our soul that's within the body. So generally our mazel is not experienced inside of us. It's above us, it's transcendent. And that's the reason why we can be living our lives based on a little bit of ego and not in total surrender to God. Because the mazel is outside of us. But that's not the point. The whole idea of the month of Adar, of Moshe Rabbeinu being born, strengthening the mazel, what's the point? The point is that a Jew should live his neshama. And not only should a Jew be aware of his soul, but he should be aware and connect to and experience the deepest point of his soul. To the point that is expressed in his body. His physical existence is in a state of continuous surrender to God, like Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu physically lived a life of total nullification to God. That's why when Moshe was born, the moment Moshe Rabbeinu was born, it says the whole house became full of light. When Moshe was born, the house became full of light. The house, meaning the physical environment, suddenly became illuminated with the light of the soul. That's what the whole point of here is. The point is that this deep connection to God should not remain in the inner, deepest the recesses of the heart. That when a person is going to come to a point, push comes to shove, and someone is going to want to disconnect him from God, he'll die. The point is not to die for the sanctification of God's name, even though Jews did that. And it accomplished something very, very big in the universe and in creation and the purpose of creation. But that's not the point. The point is to live daily with this consciousness, with this awareness, with this channeling of God's truth through us. And that's why Moshe Rabbeinu was born 7 days into Adar. 7 days is a whole week. 7 days of the week represent all of time. In other words, you have already time passing. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, 7 days, a full week, a full passage of time. And within that passage, once you have the full phenomenon of time and space, in that design of time, in that already full structure of time, comes the powerful soul of Moshe to bring absolute truth into the details of everyday living, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Shabbos, every single day permeated with a deeper point, a point that's higher than life, or is the essence of life, higher than, is expressed in everyday experience. And that's the same idea as we said earlier. Moshe is born and the house, the physical house, is filled with life, with light. And that's interestingly expressed. This year, the month of Adar, came out on a Tuesday last week, on a Tuesday and a Wednesday. What's the significance of the month of Adar coming out on a Tuesday and on a Wednesday? Tuesday is the third day, Wednesday is the fourth day. So when Rosh Chodesh Adar comes out on the third day and on the fourth day, you have Gimel and Daled, 3 and 4. 3 and 4 equals 7. So in other words, the whole idea of Chodesh Adar, if you think about the word Adar, it also is the same thing. Aleph refers to God. Aleph, Hashem himself, the singular one. Dar lives down here in time and space. So when it comes out on a Tuesday and on a Wednesday, you have 3 and 4 mixed together, make 7. That's when Moshe was born, on the 7th of Adar. But you have it already on Rosh Chodesh. In other words, the entire month becomes a month of the deepest point of the Jew manifesting, revealing itself in all the external expressions of everyday life. That's the point. And then it's also the word Gimel and Daled spell the word God, which God means Mazel. Ba God. When God was born, his mother said Ba Mazel. But she said a good Mazel came. God means Mazel. So the Mazel of the Jewish people, that's the essence of the soul, is manifesting in all the 7. It's not up here. It's not floating above the person. It's not in our superconscious. It's actualized. It's grounded. It's facilitated. It's manifesting in daily decisions, in everyday life. The purest, deepest point of our soul is connecting to decisions that we're making in our mundane daily activities. To live a godly existence, to live for something higher than ourselves, to live in a deep surrender to Hashem, to live included in God's existence as we're one with Him, not an individual something sticking out, but being part of His truth. That's Chodesh Adar. Now we'll also understand its connection both to Parshas Tetzaveh, as we said, and to Moshe Rabbeinu's name being in the Parsha, not being in the Parshas. We'll see in a moment. The opening verse of Va'ata Tetzaveh is the word says Va'ata and you, Moshe. Who is you? Va'ata is referring to Moshe. So let me know, before we do that, let's step back a second. All this is connected. We said before, when Moshe Rabbeinu was born, because earlier we said that the birth of a person, that's when his mazel is strong. Why is the mazel strong? Because that's when your essence is revealed. So we find that when a baby is born, they don't have a name yet. I mean, parents today's days pre-plan the name and they give it. But in Judaism, there's no name for a baby. For a girl, it's given by the Torah, by the first Torah reading or whenever. And by a boy, it's given by the circumcision. That means but the time period that the baby is born, for a boy, for 8 days, he's nameless. So in what condition is this child? Doesn't have a name, doesn't have an identity. He doesn't have a limiting identity. He doesn't have a defining identity. His mother's not saying to him, you're going to be a lawyer, you're going to be a doctor. You're going to be something specific, you're going to be this, you're going to be that. He's being his true self. An undefinable existence, totally one with God. That's why he doesn't have a specific name. You don't see yet a specific because he's not yet definable. Again, a person needs to have a definition. You need to have a certain persona and that you channel all this essential godliness into that specification. But first, you have to recognize that you're a being that's beyond all identity and beyond all being. Your existence, your identity is as true and one with God's very existence. And that's the baby when the baby is born. So when Moshe was born, until he got his name, it's Moshe himself, is his very being. And Moshe's very being is the essence of the Jewish people. And that's why Parshas Tetzaveh, which is the Parsha when Moshe is born, it's not just, when Moshe's name is not there in Parshas Tetzaveh, it's not just because Moshe died. It's more because Moshe was born than because Moshe passed away. Because when Moshe was born, his essence was revealed, not his name. That's why the opening word of Tetzaveh is actually Moshe. The first word of the Parsha Tetzaveh is Moshe, because the first word in this Parsha is Va'ata Tetzaveh. God is speaking to Moshe, and he says, and you should command. Va'ata, you. So God is referring to Moshe, but he's not calling him Moshe. How is he calling him? Va'ata, you. Who's you? You is the you as much as you are you, your essence. So the Parshas Tetzaveh, which is the birth of Moshe, doesn't have Moshe's name because it's infinitely beyond his name. It's his essence. And that's the reason why the actual first pasuk is Va'ata, you, Moshe, your very being, Tetzaveh, and so that's the essence of Moshe. Ata is the essence of Moshe. But before the word Ata, there is a Vav, Ve'ata Tetzaveh, and you. There is Ata, you, and then there is an and. Now, Vav in Hebrew is a line, right? Which in Chassidus it explains that whenever there's a line, it means, in the Zohar it says so also, it means a hamshacha, it means a flow. So the word Va'ata means a flow from the essence of Moshe. Moshe's essence is being channeled to who? To who? Tetzaveh es b'nei Yisroel. You should bond, you should connect to the essence of the Jewish people. Va'ata tetzaveh, you will bring out their essence. You will uncover their essence. And therefore, what will they do? V'yikchu elecha, they're going to bring to you shemen zayizach, pure olive oil. What's the pure olive oil? That's the purity of their soul. That's the deepest point of the Jewish soul. That's called pure olive oil, because olive oil doesn't mix with anything. You put it into anything, it always floats to the top. It's the Jewish essence. You can't contaminate it. It never gets ruined. And just like oil comes out of the olive only when you crush it, so too the essence of the Jewish people always comes out when the Jewish people were crushed throughout the Mesiras Nefesh, throughout all of history when we had to give our lives up through the crushing. And then what happens? Kosis, crushed. La ma'or, so that it will bring us not just to light. Ma'or means the source of light. Light is revelation. This is deeper than revelation. This is going to reveal how the Jewish soul is one with the essence of God that's beyond all lights. And then, but what's the whole point of it? Not in a way that we should die with this. Not in a way that we should float up into outer space. Lahalois ner tamid. To light up the entire world with a constant light, with an awareness of God's truth down here in the physical world and every place in the world. But who is going to accomplish all of that? Va'ata tetzaveh, Moshe's essence is going to uncover our essence through the Vav. There is a Vav that connects Moshe to the Jewish people, stimulating from his essence our essence, and through that, Tetzaveh bringing out in us Shemen Zayizach, our deepest olive oil, Kosis, which comes out when we crush our outer egos, Lamor, the true essence of our existence comes out, and that can illuminate the whole world. That's why this is the parsha of Va'ata Tetzaveh. And this will also, so now you understand why Moshe Rabbeinu's name missing is not related, chas v'sholem, just to Moshe's passing. It's actually an expression of his birthday, because the birthday of Moshe is to reveal the true being of Moshe much deeper than his name. And now we'll also understand why, according to the other opinion, when Moshe Rabbeinu, so to speak, cursed himself to be erased from the Torah, it was put into this week's parsha. Not, even though it happened later, why was it put into this week's parsha? This idea that Moshe Rabbeinu's essence is his non-beingness, and what does it do to us? It reveals in us our non-beingness, meaning our ability to be not, our ability to be completely identityless in the overwhelming identity of God, to lose ourselves in God's existence, and what we express is God, not ourselves. That total bittul. Where was it expressed in Moshe? Moshe's entire life was aspiring to bring the Torah to the world, to teach Torah, to bring Torah. Moshe's entire being was the Torah. And yet, when push came to shove and the Jewish people were in limbo, Moshe said to God, erase me from the Torah. I don't want to be, we don't understand, we don't begin to understand, we will never understand what kind of sacrifice that was. You know what it means? He's saying, erase me from the Torah, meaning whatever I stood for, my entire existence and everything, goodbye, nothing. I don't have anything left. Why? Because of them. For who? For sinners. They just did the biggest sin. That's because Moshe Rabbeinu has no self. And when the Jewish people are in danger, he transcends everything about himself. Even his love for the Torah gets, because that too is him. He loves the Torah. That out. There's only one truth. There's God's essence, which is one with the essence of Israel, which is one with the essence of Moshe. So Moshe says, erase my external existence to reveal my internal existence. What's my internal existence? How Hashem, Moshe, and the Jewish people are just one. And when that's revealed, then it will be revealed in the Torah as well, because the Torah is also one with God. But the Torah is one step more external in terms of that bond. And that's why Moshe Rabbeinu was willing to go so far, erase. And in that erasing of his existence, that's exactly where Moshe is revealing his identitylessness, that he has no identity for the identity of the Jewish people. So therefore, in which parsha is it revealed? In the parsha of his birth, which is when his essence was revealed. See, Moshe Rabbeinu, the moment after he's born and he gets a name, he already starts operating from within a certain personality. He's holy, he's righteous, he's good, he's compassionate, he's smart, he's intelligent, he's whatever. All the qualities you can say about Moshe Rabbeinu, these are all true, but these are external identities that are related to his name and to certain things he works upon as he's growing in his life. But there's something much deeper than that, and that's his essence, which was only revealed when he was born. And in which parsha was he? When is his birth? In the Zayin Adar, the month of the parsha of Tetzaveh. And therefore over there it says, Va'ato Tetzaveh. So you want to know why next week in the parsha, Moshe Rabbeinu can say to God, erase me? It's because Va'ato Tetzaveh, because his essence is revealed in the parsha before, because his essence does not allow, God forbid, for the Jewish people to be in jeopardy. So really all comes together so that's why it has to be in Parshas Tetzaveh, that Moshe's name is erased. For this that he cursed himself. Because the content of that curse is his essential bond of the Va'ata Tetzaveh of this week's Torah portion. What we have from all of this is the power of the Jewish leader, which is really rooted, the true leader of Israel, the true leader of the Jewish people. His essence, his soul is the deepest point of oneness between Hashem, with God, and as we said before, he is the root of Israel and the root of the Jewish people, and therefore his birthday, his neshama, his power is the strongest and most powerful force in existence is the Jewish people. Because God created the world for the Jewish people and for the Torah. And the day that represents that power more than any other time is Zayin Adar, Moshe Rabbeinu's birthday. So what do we see as we're entering the days of Mashiach? So I've been speaking so much in the past about how we're watching and how we're seeing so many things that are happening in the world that are pointing to Mashiach in an incredible way. So I've been showing you that they're all connected to special dates, as we've discussed in earlier classes, and they're all connected to the leader of the Jewish people. So many things. For example, Chabad has many holidays. All the most amazing things that happened over the last 3 years that are so messianic, that are so mind-blowing, where the world is turning over, they all consecutively took place on days that are special days for the Jewish people as a whole and on the Chabad calendar. And this is just something that you can see on your own. For example, when Jerusalem was announced to be the undivided capital of the Jewish people 2-3 years ago in 2017, it happened on the 19th of Kislev, which is the day of the liberation of the Alter Rebbe. Right? When just this year, when the Conservative Party in England won a stunning victory against Jeremy Corbyn, the anti-Semite, and his Labor Party. It happened on the 14th of Kislev, the day of the Rebbe's wedding, the Lubavitcher Rebbe's wedding, his wedding anniversary. The day when the anti-Semite, ruthless terrorist, what's his name, Soleimani was killed. And by the way, the whole world was like going to be turned over after. Just like they said that when you announce Jerusalem as the capital and you move the embassy, it's going to be World War III. There was no World War III, and the embassy is there and nothing happened. They were predicting who knows what's going to happen when they killed Soleimani. Nothing happened. All you have in Iran now is coronavirus. There is nothing else going on. There's nothing else. I mean, coronavirus is sad, but I'm just saying it's amazing. If you're following what's going on, it's really unbelievable. So we haven't seen anything. No repercussions, nothing. It's when you're not afraid from evil and you do the right thing, then God helps. Nothing happened. All we have now is a weakening of evil. But when did it happen? On Hey Tevis, the day of the Rebbe's victory. In Chabad, it's called Dida Notzach Day, the day of the victory of the books. When the Rebbe won the court case. In Chabad, every year we celebrate it as a day of victory. That's when it happened. Exactly on the day. On the day that they announced, the United States announced that the settlements are not inherently against international law. The ones in Yehuda and Shamron and all those places. Amazing announcement. This is turning around the policy of the United States for so many years. It was a miracle. When did it happen? On Chav Cheshvan, the birthday of the fifth Chabad Rebbe, who himself fought for the city of Hebron, as I discussed in earlier classes. Notre Dame burnt down, the symbol of the Christian oppression of the Jewish people. Last year, suddenly it went on fire. When did it happen? On the Rebbe's birthday, on Yud Aleph Nisan. The Golan Heights announced that it will be returned to it is the legitimate territory of the Jewish people. When was it announced? On Purim. Shlomo Mordechai Rubashkin, when was he freed? On the 8th day of Hanukkah. President Trump, who's been at the forefront of all these amazing transformations. Now, anybody that still doubts if he's an agent of God or not, because of people having a lot of California ideas, let me just say, I think it's becoming very clear when you're seeing who the contestants are. If it's going to be Bernie Sanders, sadly a Jew, but is there any way that one cannot see that we're dealing with a person who's, if God forbid would be president, would be the worst president for the Jewish people and the worst president for Israel ever? Someone who's saying that he's going to move the embassy back to Tel Aviv. He's going to stop giving money to Israel and give them to the Palestinians. He's going to resurrect Hamas. He's going to go back into the Iran deal. I mean, you're talking about the most idiotic stupidity. And anybody who can still follow that path is, I'm going to say in this class, and I'm not afraid to say it, is absolutely plain and simple stupid. That's what I'm going to say. If you're Jewish, if you have a Jewish heart. If you don't have a Jewish heart, I don't know what to say. But how can one not see this? It's crazy. Okay, I know it took a couple of years to get past the monster Trump. But now, when you're seeing already what the choices is, the world is splitting between good and evil. You're seeing clearly it's either you're for the Jewish people or you're against the Jewish people. It's such a clear thing. It's happening in front of our eyes. It's about time that we take off the blindfolds and see that the redemption is happening. So again, this war against Trump, when they wanted to take him down, when did it start? The case against the trial against him. First they tried the Russian collusion. That didn't work. And by the way, that ended on Shushan Purim. And then when they tried again with the impeachment, the trial began on the 24th day of Tevis, the day of the Alter Rebbe's yahrzeit, of Shneur Zalman of the Adi's yahrzeit, and the day that he was vindicated in the Senate was Yud Shvat, the previous Rebbe's yahrzeit, and the day the Rebbe became Rebbe. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. It's every single thing is happening exactly on the Rebbe's dates, on the dates of on celebrating these awesome days of Chabad, and generally for the Jewish people, and particularly connected to the Rebbe, who said that we're now entering the days of Mashiach. So here is another thing. So what happens now? Israel is held its third election today, and everybody's celebrating. Netanyahu had a win, which is nice. I would much rather Netanyahu have a win and the right side have a win than, God forbid, the left. But after everything is said and done, if anybody is willing to negotiate and give one piece of land, 1 inch of land away to an Arab, that is a crime against God. That's a crime against the Eibishter. The Eibishter gave the Jewish people Eretz Yisrael. We have no right to go and give it away. So even this idea, and the Lubavitcher Rebbe said, then if Shamir is going to negotiate to make deals with the land of Israel, the Rebbe said, I am going to take it. I'm going to make sure his government is going to collapse. So the strange thing happens. They tried one time an election. Netanyahu almost had it together, and he couldn't put it together. It collapsed. So now last year they tried it. They did it in this 1 year, 3 times already. This is the 3rd time. So they're celebrating. Meanwhile, what's the results? We're just looking preliminary results. 59 seats. 59 is not enough for a government. They need 61. They're exactly where they were a year ago. Exactly. And it's all dependent on Lieberman, which doesn't want to budge. So it looks like we're going to be at the same place, no government in Israel. Why? Because it's time already for Mashiach's government. There's no room for any other government. So it's interesting. It could have been just a tiny bit. But you know what the strange thing is? When did it happen? On Zayin Adar, on Moshe Rabbeinu's yahrzeit. So today was the voting. They started voting during the day. It was the day before Zayin Adar, but it became evening. The voting booths were open until 10 o'clock. So at around 6 o'clock, it's dark in Israel. So it went into Zayin Adar. So you see and then over here in the United States, tomorrow is Super Tuesday, which is the day of Zayin Adar, Super Tuesday, which is going to decide, at least seemingly is going to decide who's going to be, or very, very possible is going to decide who's going to be the contestant in up against Trump in next year's election. So all I am saying is that it's very, very clear from the Gemara, and it continues to the very end, that you see clearly today's days that the entire fight and the war, both here in America and in Israel, is really about, it's about the Jewish people, it's about Mashiach, it's about the Third Temple. And the whole world is taking sides, which side you're going on. In the middle of all of this, the Eibishter throws in coronavirus, and it's making the whole world crazy as well. I don't like to give interpretations on viruses. That's why I'm never going to, I'm not, Hashem should give refuah and a heal. I don't know if we need a virus in order to bring Mashiach. So we can, but one thing is for sure is that something's happening. Strange things are happening that are just really, really strange. But what I think is very, very important for us to realize is that the fact that these 2 powerful elections are taking place on Zayin Adar, it's just showing who's the boss. Nothing in this world is going to happen that is not consistent with Mashiach and with God's will. The world is actually now it's so clear that the world is now, the Eibishter is putting together the puzzle the way he wants it. He's flipping things over in an incredible way. And we, as people, need to be aware of the coming of Mashiach. We need to be excited about it, and we need to do whatever we can to improve ourselves, because we want to be in our best clothing. We want to be best ready to be able to greet Mashiach and see Mashiach, because it's so happening. It's so real, and it's very important, because in any moment, it's going to be, in a sense, too late to prepare yourself. Now is the time to prepare ourselves. All these things that are happening is Hashem whispering to us again and again and again, says, open your eyes, see how I'm running the world, I'm changing everything. Get ready, get ready, get ready. Do whatever you can, Add more Tehillim, add more good deeds, add more Avos Yisroel, add more mitzvahs. It's happening, And anybody thinking that they're running the show and they're controlling everything, they're controlling nothing. You see that everything is happening exactly, running according to a higher calendar, being directed by forces way beyond the players down here. They're absolutely in the hand of the Eibishter, Leiv Malachim V'Sarim B'Yad Hashem. Even elections where you think people have freedom to vote, even that is so directed by God that there's no real free choice in the matter of the governments that are elected in the world. It's all just what the Eibishter is setting. Doesn't mean that we shouldn't vote. We have to vote. We have to do our best. But at the same time, the amunah and the understanding that God is running things exactly the way He wants it. And in our case, it's racing towards the complete redemption. And Baruch Hashem, we've been seeing miracles. We will continue seeing miracles. And this Purim, hopefully, will be the first Purim in the days of Mashiach. Bezrat Hashem. Not the last Purim in Golus, but the first Purim in Mashiach. May it be now, now, and now.